fact, Machiavelli is a path-breaking political philosopher, no matter how evil or pernicious his teachings. We ignore him at our peril. And like it or not, there is a dark and sparkling brilliance to this, like black diamonds. You look at it and you realize that however horrifying his conclusions, there's a certain grim truth in what he says, and we may not accept the entirety of it, but like it or not, the world of politics is an ugly, profane, immoral place, at least to a great extent, and those of us who wish to be practical politicians will find it very hard to keep our hands completely clean. Machiavelli wishes to liberate us from what he views as being childish, insipid guilt feelings about political morality. There are no rules in politics in the same way and for the same reason there are no rules in nature. With Machiavelli, we have one of the great restatements of a political theme introduced in Western political thought in the first book of the Republic. If you stretch your memory back to Professor Ricciuti's lectures last time, when he talked about the Republic, in the first book of the Republic, Socrates' primary antagonist is a man named Thrasymachus. He's a sophist, and Thrasymachus holds the view that justice is the advantage of the stronger. In other words, whoever it is that has the most force, the most military power, makes the rules, and justice is whatever they tell you to do. So when the Nazis win, whatever they tell you to do is just. If the Stalinists win, whatever they tell you is just. If Machiavelli wins, or the Borgias win, doesn't matter, as long as they have the power to coerce you, whatever they tell you is just. Thrasymachus' view, then, is that justice is a simple matter of coercion, and there is no moral order to the world. Now, this view is thoroughly criticized and at least apparently refuted in the first book of the Republic. But like all profound ideas, resonance of it is always, at least implicitly, in the Western political tradition. And Machiavelli regains the nerve to say there is no moral order to the world. He's the first man to reassert what Thrasymachus said in the first book of the Republic, that we live peculiarly and exclusively here in the realm of nature, that there is no metaphysical realm by which to judge the good and evil of human actions. There's only power, force, brutality. You adjust to it or you succumb to it. Those are your choices. Machiavelli wants to teach us how to become tyrannical men. And if you stop and think about the first book of the Republic, I believe you will recognize that Thrasymachus has the tyrannical soul, the soul that's driven entirely by passion, that thinks reason is an afterthought for the feeble who want to make up stories about why we ought to be good rather than evil. Machiavelli and Thrasymachus both wish to liberate us from metaphysics and morality. Both of them say, in this world of darkness, flux, double-crossing and backstabbing, the only way to get ahead, the only way to achieve human felicity, human happiness, human goodness, is to get them before they get you. Donald Trump recently wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. You could say that Machiavelli's book is The Art of the Double Cross. He not only explains how to be treacherous, he gives you examples. He calls them from history. He calls them from contemporary politics as well. But in every case, he shows that crime not only pays, but that goodness is a waste of time and goodness will ultimately be your downfall. In some respects, Machiavelli's project is like that of Friedrich Nietzsche. It'll be a revaluation of all values. He's going to stand the Christian and the Platonic view of righteousness, of political morality, on its head. All the things that we previously thought to be good turn out to be evil. All the things that we previously thought to be evil turn out to be good, or, if not good, pleasurable, practical, useful, handy. Machiavelli has written a number of works. The Prince, which is his most famous work, is a remarkably brief piece of work. Usually when a great philosopher has some important message to give, he can't control his pen, and if you look at, say, Aquinas' Summa Theologica, it goes on and on and on. It's interminable. Machiavelli has not written that sort of a book. It's a 90-page book, in and out. It's meant to be a practical handbook for the tyrant. Machiavelli's book, The Prince, was Joseph Stalin's favorite work. He kept it on his night table. And it's not hard to see why. It shows you how to be a good tyrant. A good in the sense of effective, good in the sense of practical, not good in the sense of morally good, because that's only for old ladies and kids. Nobody seriously believes that stuff. Now, this may sound like a very cynical set of ideas, and in fact it is. But although it is very cynical, there is an element of it which is practical, which is true, like it or not. If you are completely good, completely virtuous, I am not certain that you will be a completely effective and efficient politician. I don't know that I want the president to be as kind and as thoughtful and as philosophical as Marcus Aurelius. Maybe we would be harmed as much as benefited by that. I am sure, on the other hand, that I don't want the president to be like Machiavelli's prince, because it's a sure thing we will be harmed rather than benefited by that. Prior to going into seclusion and writing this book, Machiavelli had worked for the Medici family in Florence, who were influential figures in Florentine and thus in Italian politics. And although he had been serving them and helping them out and advising them on political matters, the Medicis had been thrown out of Florence, had been chased out, and with them goes Machiavelli. He goes into retirement. Now, there's a definite sense here that here's a man who's very intelligent, very bright, but awfully frustrated. He gives you that sense when you read the book of being a Monday morning quarterback. God, how he wants to go back into there in practical politics. He hates being among the musty books in the library. It's not interesting to him. What he primarily wants is to run people's lives. What he primarily wants is political power. And after he gets political power, what he wants then is more political power, because you can never have enough. As Socrates pointed out about the tyrannical man, this is a thirst that can never be slaked. No matter how much satisfaction you get for these desires, nothing is ever enough. You're like someone that can't get enough to eat or can't get enough to drink. No matter how much you eat or drink, it's never satisfactory. So here's one of the great dissatisfied individuals, and he's even more dissatisfied because he's forced to be an armchair quarterback, and no one is more practical than Niccolo Machiavelli. He dedicates his book to one of the Medici family, and it's one of the most flowery and flattering and adoring introductions one could possibly imagine. And of course, it's no less cynical than the rest of the book. The book itself tells the wise prince, the monarch, he who would be tyrant, that he must be very careful to avoid flatterers, because flatterers are dangerous men. Your Noble Highness. A clever fellow like the Medici, for whom Machiavelli is writing the book, is going to see through the introduction, but then wonder, do I want this guy on my side or do I want him on someone else's side? This is a very difficult thing to difficult concern for a real prince. Look at the examples that we get in Machiavelli's The Prince. He gives examples of how to take over countries that you are born to. For example, if your father is the king and your father dies, how you take succession there? Very easy. The people will accept it. You won't have any problem with them. And when you are trying to establish your rule as a new ruler in this legitimate government, the best thing to do is to establish fear, because you can count on fear. Machiavelli says it would be very nice if you could be loved. Being loved by your people, by your subjects, is a very handy thing for a ruler. And Machiavelli says it's not that love is intrinsically good, but rather that love is handy and practical. And if your people love you, they're less likely to give you a problem. So you should cultivate love. Now, love is a nice thing to have, but fear is the kind of thing Machiavelli really understands. He likes fear, because fear is one of those things you can count on. And if, as Machiavelli points out, you are forced to choose between having the people love you and having them fear you, make sure you have them fear you, because you can count on fear. People's love, you never be sure enough about that. But fear you can count on. So it's important to be feared. The next best thing is to be loved. The only thing the prince must avoid, according to Machiavelli, the prince cannot afford to be hated. When the people hate you, they will come and get you one way or another. They will depose you. And the whole name of this game is to take power and to control power and to make it your own and then to absorb more power. There's a part in which he says, well, it's nice if you can inherit a kingdom from your father, if your father happens to be the king, but very few of us are lucky enough to have that circumstance. Now, you must think back to in your head that Machiavelli's father was the Pope, which is a very handy circumstance. Just the problem is you can't get to the papacy by hereditary succession, so we have kind of a difficulty there. Yeah, they've been careful about that. Well, Machiavelli says if you don't happen to be born to the throne, if you don't get the royal purple by matter of birth, there's always usurpation, which is a great favorite activity for him. He really likes usurpation. So the idea of getting close to the throne, of gradually weaseling your way into the court, and telling, of course, the king or the prince or the legitimate ruler how much you admire him and how well you think of him and how important it is to constantly be pursuing Machiavellian political policies, the more you'll become important, indispensable, the more you could stab him in the back and take control of the government yourself. Machiavelli's moral universe is the moral universe of the wolf, of the predatory animal. Machiavelli and his political philosophy has a horrifying brilliance to it on account of the fact that it's consistent with much of what we see in political life on an everyday basis. The drawback of this conception of political philosophy and the concomitant conception of an amoral universe is that it makes people no longer social animals. Stop and think about what the Machiavellian wants us to do. He wants us to constantly betray others, both above us in the political structure and below us in the political structure, in order to satisfy our own lust for power. A lust which is never satisfied and which only grows bigger and bigger as its objects become bigger and bigger. It's one of the reasons, incidentally, why Machiavelli likes Roman history so much. Roman history is full of creatures like this. Machiavelli thinks they're wonderful. He thinks that the Italy of the 1500s, 16th century Italy, is feeble, prostrate, broken up into fragmented, warring little cliques that prevent real political glory from coming into being. The reason why he likes a horrifying figure like Caesar Borgia is that Caesar Borgia is the man of virtu, V-I-R-T-U. Virtu is exactly the opposite of Platonic virtue. It is much more like Thrasymacheian virtue. It is the virtue of the man that tells lies, that stabs people in the back, that does whatever it takes to satisfy his unquenchable desire for power. So what we need is a man of virtu, and this book is designed to create virtu. The problem is that this virtu is the virtu of the predatory animal, not of the rational human being. Or it's the rational human being insofar as that rationality is completely subjugated or subordinate to one's irrational desires. And if you stop and look back at what the soul of the tyrannical man was supposed to look like in the Republic, you realize that the desiring part is really running the rational part. The rational part of the soul is just an instrument in the hands of his desire for power or sex or money or what have you. Machiavelli takes that same conception of the soul. Desire comes first. My desire for power determines all my other activities, and my rationality is subordinate to that. So Machiavelli wants us to have that kind of virtu, the virtu of the leopard, the guiltless killing of the hawk. The hawk doesn't feel bad about killing sparrows. That's the way hawks are. The way of nature is the way of cruelty. We must learn to live with that, or die with that if you get your way through Machiavelli. Now, let's come back to the problem of Italy. Italy is fragmented. Italy is broken up. Italy is in a historically horrible set of circumstances. And Machiavelli is sounding a clarion call to break through from old ecclesiastical borrowings, old scriptural conceptions of virtue, old Greco-Roman conceptions of morality. What Machiavelli wants is a good practical politician that will scheme and lie his way to the top. And once he gets to the top of a particular Italian city-state, he will attack one city-state after another and unify Italy and create something like a new Roman Empire. There can be new glory, a new this-worldly satisfaction of the potential for human greatness. Remember that Machiavelli is completely opposed to all metaphysical interpretations of the world. Machiavelli does not believe in heaven and hell. Machiavelli does not believe in God. Machiavelli does not believe in the realm of the forms. All Machiavelli believes in is here and now. The main chance. How are we going to get what we want right now? And Machiavelli's conception of virtu, of the blessed human condition, of the well-organized human soul, and of the practically run political society, all come together in this figure of the ruthless, tyrannical prince.